The first thing Marcus Ramirez felt wasn't the sunlight, it was the fear that everyone could see him now. After 22 years in Pelican Bay's SHU, the open yard hit him like a blast wave he wasn't built to withstand. If you're drawn to stories like this, go ahead and hit subscribe, because this one only gets darker. They unshackled him at the gate the same way they had locked him down in 1993, without ceremony, without hesitation, and without looking him in the eye. But everything else had changed. The yard was loud. Chaotic. Alive. The clang of weights, the constant shuffle of boots, the arguments, the laughter, noise he hadn't heard in decades, all of it crashed over him in a dizzying rush. And he froze. A CO barked at him to keep moving, but Marcus's legs wouldn't cooperate. His body remembered a world where stepping too close to another man meant a disciplinary write-up, where a single noise echoed through concrete like a warning, where silence was the only safe language. Out here, silence made you stand out. A group of younger inmates stared at him, some curious, some calculating. Marcus didn't know which was worse. The SHU had stripped him of eye contact, small talk, even the reflex to nod back at someone. Now he was expected to read faces again, judge intentions, and tell the difference between danger and normal prison tension. He felt like a man learning to breathe in a different atmosphere. He walked toward the track, slow and stiff, trying to mimic the way the others moved. His heart hammered with each step. Sweat rolled down his back though the air was cold. The sky felt too big, too open. For 22 years he'd seen the sky through a concrete-cut rectangle no bigger than his forearm. Now it stretched over him like a dome he didn't trust. Then he made his first mistake. A younger inmate brushed his shoulder while passing, light and unintentional, normal for any crowded yard. But to Marcus, trained by isolation to treat sudden contact as threat, the touch sent a jolt through his system. He spun, defensive instinct kicking in before he could stop it, eyes narrowed. The kid threw his hands up. "Relax, old head. Just walking." A few others turned to look. In a place like Pelican Bay, eyes meant interest, and interest could mean trouble. Marcus dropped his gaze, muttered something that didn't sound like a real response, and walked away. But the moment shifted the air around him. People had noticed. Guards too. And in general population, attention was currency, good or bad. Later that evening, as he was assigned a double bunk cell for the first time since the Clinton administration, the next shock hit him even harder. A stranger's voice behind him said, "I'm your cellie. You good?" Marcus didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because after decades alone, he didn't know how to sleep with another human being 3 feet away. And the man watching him from the lower bunk had a secret of his own, one that would make Marcus's transition far more dangerous than anyone expected. Sleep never came. Not that first night, not the second. Marcus lay stiff on the top bunk, staring at the ceiling, listening to every breath his cellmate took. Every exhale felt like a reminder of how close another human being was, close enough to touch, close enough to attack, close enough to whisper something you couldn't unhear. His cellie, Dre, acted patient, almost too patient. He didn't press Marcus with questions. Didn't joke around. Didn't try to size him up. He watched. Quietly. Consistently. Like a man waiting for something. By the third day, Marcus couldn't ignore it. In the chow hall, Dre finally spoke. "They're asking about you." Marcus's fork paused halfway up. "Who?" Dre didn't look at him when he answered. "Everyone who remembers the old days. Especially the ones who think you didn't land in the SHU by accident." Marcus felt a cold ripple crawl through him. His time in the SHU wasn't from gang politics or a riot. It came from refusing to carry out a hit. Back then, that kind of refusal meant one of two things: you were weak, or you were an informant. And rumors aged slower than men. He set the fork down. "Let them talk." Dre shook his head once. "Not how this prison works, old head." The words hung between them, heavy as shackles. Marcus looked around the chow hall, scanning faces he didn't recognize, faces that didn't recognize him either. Some watched him openly. Others gave half-glances, pretending they weren't paying attention. In Pelican Bay, curiosity was rarely innocent. Later that afternoon, the yard erupted in the usual noise, but Marcus heard something different, a rhythm beneath the chaos. Whispers. Exchanges. Men aligning themselves without saying a word. He watched an older inmate gesture toward him while speaking to a group of younger guys clustered by the wall. When Marcus made eye contact, the group dispersed too quickly. Dre stepped beside him. They remember your file. They want to know if you're a problem coming back into population. Marcus clenched his jaw. I was locked down longer than most of them have been alive. Exactly, Dre said. Which is why they're nervous. 20 plus in the SHU? People assume you broke before you came out. Marcus didn't respond. He didn't need to. The truth was ugly. Decades in isolation had broken him in ways he didn't fully understand. Loud spaces overwhelmed him. Fast movements made his chest tighten. He still flinched at unexpected voices. And he hadn't had a real conversation in years. But the prison didn't care about his struggle. They cared about stability. And a man who didn't fit cleanly into the structure was a threat. That evening, when he returned to his cell, he found Dre sitting on the lower bunk, elbows on his knees, eyes locked on Marcus like he'd made up his mind about something. You need to hear this, Dre said. There's a paper going around. Your name's on it. Marcus felt his pulse spike. What kind of paper? The kind people sign when they want someone removed. For a moment, Marcus couldn't breathe. His past hadn't followed him, it had been waiting. And the man sharing his cell knew far more about that paper than he was letting on. Marcus closed the cell door behind him, the metal locking into place with a finality that matched the weight in his chest. Dre didn't move. He sat there with the same calm expression he'd worn since the day Marcus arrived, a calm that felt less like patience now and more like calculation. Show me the paper, Marcus said. Dre didn't reach for anything. He just held Marcus's stare. There's no paper in the cell, he replied. But there's one in circulation. And it's getting signatures. Marcus felt a familiar pressure building in his skull, not anger, not panic, but that old SHU-induced sensory crush. Too much noise. Too much meaning in every word. Too many consequences in every silence. Why are you telling me? Marcus asked. Because I know what they think you are, Dre said quietly. And I know they're wrong. Marcus had heard lies before, decades of them, wrapped in promises from men who died the same week they made them. He didn't trust easily, not anymore. Isolation had stripped that out of him like rusted wiring. And Dre read that doubt on his face. You think I'm setting you up, Dre said. But if I wanted that, I'd just stay quiet. Let the yard take care of you. Marcus didn't respond. He didn't need to. They both knew it was true. Dre finally leaned back against the concrete wall. You spent 22 years locked down because you wouldn't put a knife in someone. They think that means you cooperated. But I dug into your old case. You didn't talk. You just refused. Marcus felt the floor shift under him, emotionally, not physically. To have someone speak the truth out loud after decades of silence felt unreal, almost dangerous. How do you know that? Marcus asked. My brother was in your block, Dre said. Back when you made that choice. You didn't snitch. You just wouldn't kill. The air went still. For the first time since stepping out of the SHU, Marcus felt something close to clarity. Dre wasn't hunting him. Dre was protecting him, or trying to. But in a place like Pelican Bay, protection wasn't free. What do you want? Marcus asked. Dre looked up. I want you alive long enough to get your footing. And I want something in return. Marcus waited. When the meeting comes, you'll be called, Dre said. They're going to ask you to explain yourself. Most guys panic. They lie. They talk too much. Don't. Just tell the truth. Marcus let out a slow breath. The truth. A thing he hadn't spoken in full in 2 decades. That night, the call came. A guard escorted him to a storage room where 4 men waited, leaders, old heads, men whose words could shift the balance of a yard. They asked the question Dre predicted. You refuse to hit. Why? Marcus lifted his eyes and answered with the only thing he had left, because I wanted to walk out of this place with something human still alive in me. Silence followed, dense, heavy, decisive. One of the men finally nodded. Then don't lose it now. The signatures stopped. The paper vanished. And for the first time since stepping out of the SHU, Marcus walked the yard without eyes burning holes in his back. But adjustment wasn't victory. It was survival, one breath at a time. Because after decades in isolation, returning to general population wasn't freedom, it was relearning how to exist. If you think this story was intense, the next one will leave you speechless. Subscribe for more true crime stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat.